Hello, good morning. I am hopping on here to do my Wellness Wednesday. Whoop, I don't know what I did. Sorry, I pressed a button. Let's see if the phone stays there. So I'm working from my home office today, and I've got a sweatshirt on because it is actually really cold. It's really cold here in Southern California. Cold being like 50. So happy Wellness Wednesday. I wanted to hop on here to kind of do something fun. I'm playing with this topic in a couple different arenas, and I thought I'd play with it here. So how your approach to food, how you eat, which you do have an approach whether you're aware of it or not. So you have an approach to food, and I'm going to bring to light maybe some different approaches that you may have. If you can apply some of these principles to your relationships, whether you have a partner, a spouse, a father, a mother, a brother, a sister, a mom, or a dad, however you interact with people, those are relationships. And looking at your approach to food and how it impacts your relationships, you can just make some slight adjustments to improve them. And if you like doing some introspection, stick around. If you don't, move along. And that's what I'm going to talk about today. So part of my practice, we're working on also building up some YouTube shorts. And I will be posting the link to that and just kind of building up that there. So I might be moving some of these lives there if you catch any of these. So I'm Dr. Patty Ann Ford. I'm the owner of Imagine Wellness, and I believe that every person has unlimited, untapped potential, whether you're a business owner, a leader in your field, and maybe a chronic dieter. So I tend to work with leaders. I work with people who show up in the space of their natural gift as a leader. And so whether you're an owner, a physician, an attending surgeon, kind of wherever you're at, I tend to gravitate towards very high success. There's some part of their life where they feel like it's lacking, whether it's the connection to their body, connection to food. And today, I feel like I have a frog in my throat. Excuse me, we're going to talk about how your approach to food, what does that look like? So maybe you are a structured individual that has a very structured approach to food. You know what you're going to eat in 2.5 hours. You know, hi Chanel, you know what you're going to eat at 3 o'clock. You know what you're going to eat for dinner. You have a very structured approach. This structured approach is very beneficial because you have a very systemic routine. It is like a rotating wheel. It just works really well. You save time, maybe money. The risk is you might lack the enjoyment of food because there's so much routine, you forget to connect to the emotion or the spontaneity. Maybe you lack spontaneity or fun or play. On the opposite side, say you have a very spontaneous approach to food. You have no idea what you're going to eat the rest of the day. You know you're going to eat. There's no plans. You're just kind of winging it. Being a mom of 2 little boys, I tend to fall into that category if there's not a plan. It's very spontaneous. When I'm hungry, I respond to that versus a plan. And it's just kind of whatever's in the fridge. So I have access to food. I have things that I like in the fridge, but it's a more spontaneous approach. The risk with that is you do lack routine towards goals. You do lack any sort of structure towards a measured goal. So if you have goals in your life, whether it be health goals, relationship goals, financial goals, business goals, if you can't measure it, then it might be hard to see if something is growing. So that is a whole nother topic. But when you're in this spontaneous play all the time, you do risk any sort of growth. you do risk any sort of improvement because there's nothing to measure. You don't really have a geared approach. So a lot of times when I'm working with people who want to balance out their blood sugars, or they're working on their weight maintenance, or, just they're working on their relationship with food, there does need to be a structure in the intervention to try to measure what's going on. Now, if you have a very structured approach and you're very rigid, it can be obsessive. It can be where that becomes the priority versus any other intuition. So you could also have a fear-based approach to food where you can't have that food because of the fear of the consequence of eating it, whether that be pain, whether that be the food is going to hurt me, the food is going to cause inflammation, and all of those are very real feelings. And some of them are backed by science, right? Some of this we can't deny that food has an objective response on your health, right? But if you're coming from this fear-based approach, it can become very intellectualized, very ego-based, where then you become kind of a authority figure, where then you think everybody else should be doing what you're doing because you're right and you're always right. So that ego can get in the way of love and grace and kindness. So a fear-based approach, it might work for a little bit until it doesn't. Again, you might be missing that connection. The risk is missing the connection or the love and the enjoyment of food. An intuitive-based approach to food is a very wise, patient, where you get to choose the foods because you want to, you get to, and it's a very, I'm allowed to eat, I'm allowed to be hungry, I want to eat my Doritos, I want to eat this kale and quinoa salad. It's a much more wise, I think I've said that twice, service approach. And sometimes, however, intuition is great, but the problem with food is you do have to have a slight preparation. You can't prepare, you cannot avoid preparation or food gathering or anything like shopping and then be like, I'm very wise right now. I'm in my wise mind. I feel like having an apple and peanut butter, but you haven't gone shopping. So you have no fresh fruit. So there's got to be a mixture of all these types of approaches. There's not a cookie cutter approach. And the unique thing about food and your relationship to food is everybody is different. Everybody has an individualized approach. So when you have companies, very commercialized companies saying everybody should be organic, everybody should be plant-based, everybody should be X, Y, and Z, enter diet plan there, it doesn't work for everybody because everybody is different. So I think you can take principles from each plan and apply them. And I'm not against any of these plans. I'm not pro any of these plans. I am against taking a theory and placing it on someone. And if that person can't follow the theory, shaming them for not having enough discipline or not having enough motivation or willpower. That right there is a very shame-based approach to health, and it doesn't do anybody any good. And I've worked with people who really love cracking the whip. They really love saying, you need to be tougher, you need to all of this stuff. And I think sometimes some people, I know my husband, he always responds to that type of reaction, but also at the end of the day, he loves kindness and he loves grace and he loves someone in his corner all the time saying, you can do it. And that would be the relationship I have as a wife. He wants someone in his corner cheering for him, not critiquing all the time, which I have done that too. And that doesn't work. So when you have someone in your corner for your health critiquing you or telling you what you're doing wrong or telling you what you shouldn't be eating, that just gets exhausting. So the person that's working with your health or your business or your relationship or whatever, really highlighting what you can be doing, there is a reason for that approach because of how our brain works. Hi, Danny. Oh, yay. Good. I got another visitor. How your approach to food If you are a spontaneous eater with no plan, that might be how you're showing up in your relationship, and your spouse or your partner might be wanting a little more routine, a little more effort, a little more, hey, it's Monday. I want to make Monday a make-out Monday. I just came up with something. That was the first thing that came to my mind. I want to show you that I enjoy physical touch, or whatever, however your love language is, right? However you appreciate love. Maybe Tuesday, it's let's have a tip Tuesday. How can I show up in your life better? And maybe you've never had these conversations with a relationship in your life, so maybe that feels odd, but I can guarantee you your spouse or whatever would really appreciate an introspective conversation around the relationship, because there's 3 people in a relationship. There's you, there's your spouse or your partner, and then there's the relationship is the third person. And it's really important to pay attention to all 3 if you want that relationship to be better. And sometimes I work with people who are very, very successful in business. They are building and building and building and creating and multiplying and all of these things. But their relationship with their kids, they're having a really hard time. Their relationship with their partner, they're having a really hard time. And that is going to be the one thing on your deathbed that you are going to remember. You're going to remember at the end of your life the feelings and the relationships. You may or may not remember how much money you have. It's not going to be that important. And any book that you talk about people end of their life, relationships, people matter the most. Navigating just the loss of my dad and grief, he was very successful in his career, but I miss him. I miss his relationship. I don't miss all the other stuff. Relationships matter. Your approach to food, you can take the philosophies and you can apply it to anything. You can apply it to your business. So say you're a very rigid, you count all the macros, you count all of the things, you know exactly what you're eating. And maybe that's how you're showing up in your relationship, right? You are showing up as a very rigid, well, we can't do that. It's not date night. We can't do this then. I didn't know you want to have a spontaneous conversation. My dad was also like that a little bit. I remember one time him and my mom were having a conversation, and he stops and he goes, okay, that was quality time, right? He was a very rigid, he showed up as an engineer, but he also had this play side anyway. And so my mom even said, well, you just ruined it. You just ruined the spontaneous conversation by making it rigid. And it was just really funny, but he was trying. And so, if you have a very rigid approach to things that might be serving you very well in a teaching, in a different philosophy, but maybe play. Find a space in your week, this weekend, or in your night to play. And that could be a game, that could be a playful conversation, that could be a playful outing. Maybe you just, surprise your spouse or partner on where you could go, and just do something that is a bit more spontaneous versus according to plan. And as a mother of 2 and a spouse, sometimes we just get into this routine where there's a similar, my husband does the same thing every morning. And what would it be like to surprise him with, a spontaneous breakfast and just say, okay, we're going to play, or I don't know, whatever. That will bring more joy and more connection with your food. It also will bring more joy and connection with your relationships. If you want to know how you tend to show up with food or your relationships, I can measure that, and it's free. We look at your subconscious thought patterns. I looked in I was doing some admin work this morning already, and I've measured over 200 people. I've been in this business for 3 years. So about 200 people, I've measured their subconscious thought patterns, and then I can talk about it with you without an appointment. Well, we would need an appointment to be on the same time, but for free. And just see if my services would serve you in this capacity. I have different ways to interact with me. I have a newsletter that's free. I have a text service that's $10. I'm working on a book. We're writing a book kind of about these principles. And I have different ways to engage with me one-on-one, working on a class, hopefully that will be released by the end of this year, which is a different price point. So if just kind of how my services serve you. If you're in the state of California, I can use your insurance, and we can work on at least your food, but there's also different creative ways. We could do a group class if you have a couple buddies that you want to kind of dive into this and do some introspection and say, you know what? I really do want to improve my relationship. I really do want to improve my business endeavors. I really want to improve my relationship with money. And we can look at those principles because they're the same. However, whatever extrinsic thing that shows up in your life, money, cars, houses, you have a relationship with them. Food, you have a relationship with that, and your subconscious thought patterns do interact with that. So anyway, your relationship with food, spontaneous or rigid. How is your relationship with your partner? Is it spontaneous? Is it rigid? And how can you do a dance of the both? And if you tend to show up as mostly spontaneous, try to have some more structure. And what would that look like? If you tend to show up as rigid, try to play a little bit, and do something spontaneous and watch the joy and the connection just improve just a little bit, just a slight shift. I don't know who wouldn't say, I want my relationship to improve. I mean, I want my relationship with my health to improve. I mean, don't most people want those things? And if you don't, that's fine. But I can guarantee you that would give you some more joy and show up a little bit differently in your life. Because at the end of the day, that's what matters. That's what feels so good. All right. Thank you so much. This is Wellness Wednesday. I'm Dr. Patty M. Ford, and I hope you enjoyed this. And if you have any comments or you want to share it along, please do. And have a wonderful day.